Welcome to Steve Rude Live. It is May 18th, 2025. How my time flies. So we're here for of huge importance. I actually got this idea in my head that I was finally going to talk about the single greatest thing that ever impacted me as an artist yesterday morning. And I said, it's time to tell everyone what that moment is. I'm certain some of you are going to be thinking, well, when did this take place, Steve? It must have taken place when you were much older, probably when you were at least 35 to 40, something that took place in art school with one of your teachers. In fact, that is all fallacy. This moment of ultimate truth with art took place in the 7th grade. Before any art teachers entered my life, before any great revelations from art books or teachers or anything that I ever read came into my life. It came into my life with the advent of a contest, a poster contest for kids in middle school, where we were asked to do a anti-smoking poster. And the anti-smoking poster came about because I think with the actual advent of the year 1970, there began the official anti-smoking campaigns that we were beginning to see on TV commercials. And I remember those commercials. I was old enough to remember them. And here comes this contest that adults in schools were real big on keeping his kids busy and out of trouble. And they'd probably had these little conferences and said, well, let's keep these kids busy and just have them do something. Well, how about this anti-smoking thing? Well, that'll keep them out of trouble. So they announced these poster contests, and we all get really excited about them. And, you know, I just remembered the second poster because I thought I wasn't going to remember that, but I do remember them. And I, in fact, was the 3rd place winner in this contest. And when I saw the first 2, I knew instantly why these were better than mine. I want to show you the one that I did first. And the actual poster is what you're going to be seeing on your screen right now. So that one's up. Mine is okay, but it's kind of this and that and all around the place. It's not what I would consider direct enough. And this is my cartooning style that I used back in the day because I didn't know how to draw real things, and I also had no interest in drawing real things. I was into my cartooning kick, and this was a time in my life when I thought I would be a cartoonist like Charlie Brown and Snoopy. The second one, which I remember adoring, was a watercolor of this guy that I don't remember his name, but it was a Uncle Sam riff, and it was a watercolor of an Uncle Sam painting, and he was pointing at us, and he said, I want you to stop smoking. And that, I just loved that one. This guy was very talented, and he actually knew how to use paint, watercolor specifically. So I thought, I knew right away when I went to the mall where they displayed these posters, why this one, the 2nd place winner, was better than mine. But the 1st place winner, that was the one that transcended every other entry so far that this is why it never left my mind, and I knew instantly when I saw this that it was the answer to a mind so brilliant that none of us could even approach it in its brilliance. And here it is right now. Do you guys see what I mean? Could anything be more direct, more simple, and more easy to read instantly than this poster right here? If you're looking at what I'm looking at, the answer is no. This piece was made out of cut out paper. Everything about it was cut out. Now I've simulated this image in Photoshop, but that's, to the best of my memory, is what it looked like. Cool it. A cigarette snuffed out on an ice cube. It was so brilliant, I never forgot it. And this, for the first time in my lifetime, I have ever shown it to you guys and told you why it beat everyone else by a light year. So there you go. There's your answer, and there's my story. But the greatest single thing I ever learned about what is a great message, a great design, and something that was thought out better than anything else that was rendered. Even if it was a masterpiece in rendering, this thing beat it out because it was the design of it, and the message was so clear, so instantaneous. So there you go. I know you guys have a great interest in me showing you the things that I've learned over the years. And the first one I'm going to show you, which is also going to be on screen real soon, this one has to do with spotting blacks. And this one happens to be a strip by Noel Speckles. And this is what it looks like right here. What you're looking at here is something in the miniature version, at least on my end.
You can see the whole image.
Right, you can see the whole image on screen, of course. The one I have is a much reduced image, which is one of the ways you relate this stuff in terms of thumbnails. These actual panels are the size that I do my thumbnails in. So it's 3 individual tiers. It's got very small panels, and you can still understand very clearly what's going on in these panels. Some of them are even silhouettes, and they work. Now, this is considered old-fashioned storytelling, which is exactly what it is. It took place in the 1940s, 30s, I don't quite remember, but the point is to show you how cast shadows work, how the clarity can come about from using very simple black spotting. Because if you confuse the viewer with spotting blacks that camouflage the main event, people aren't going to want to read it. It's pretty simple. So we'll move that out of the way. Also, those things are put up for you guys to look at and practice, which was recommended by one of our readers that came up with a great idea. Now, this Jet Scott strip right here, remember, everyone wanted to do comic strips back then. Comic books were passe and no-go, persona non grata. These strips were popular they were coveted by artists because they paid well. I think that was kind of the telling moment of who decided what to get in the what. They wanted the Muno. They wanted the greenback. So I don't blame them. But, these are way before my time and obviously way before yours too. But if you can see, look at this panel right here and look at the one below it. You can see that I added some of my own blacks just to show you the possibilities of what could take place. I'm especially proud of this one right here and the one to the right of it, because I think I increased the dramatics by many times over. These are fun little exercises for me to do, and I've been doing these for the duration of my career. Black spotting, taking Xeroxes and daring to have fun with them and seeing how far you can go, because oftentimes you can go too far. But obviously you're never going to know until you go too far. So just grab your Xeroxes and experiment. That's what I do. And if you're a fan of the dude, this is exactly what I recommend to learn your parameters of how far you can go. Something from a French strip here. Look at these 2 panels right here. Now that is some pretty daring stuff. This is as far as I would ever push it right here. So to go from here to here, that's pretty nuts, isn't it? And I think that really is pushing it as far as it can go. But it still reads. The less you see, the more you're drawn into it, because you're trying to see things that aren't there. You're naturally compelled to see things that you want to see details that aren't there. And if you were to ink the top one exactly as he drew it, which is very loose but very all there, you would have much less resistance to look at this the way it is here. because there's so much obliterated, there's so much knocked out that you don't have the same compunction to look at it the way you would look here if it was inked like this. And there are many ways to ink it like this. Look at the background. Should that be pure black? Should it be a bunch of slashes? This is the fun of inking. So the people that look at inking as something that's going to go away, well, who decides that? Who decides if inking goes away? If it's up to me, I'm always going to be inking my work with a brush. So you can count on me always going to be doing this stuff. It's up to the artist. There's nothing that says it goes away. That's a bunch of nonsense that is propagated by people that listen to what other people tell them is going to happen. But it's just not true. It's all decided by people in the very beginning that act like they decide these things, and they really don't. This one I love right here. I deliberately did this one years ago because I was looking at this incredible panel that again reads very well, and yet it is unbelievably complicated, with every figure drawn to perfection. Everyone's a real character. Everyone is got something going on. Everything is drawn correctly. The horse is a horse. Everyone is an individual. Everything's working just right. There's not a finger or a fold out of place. So I decided I need to break this down. What do we really have going on here? So the first thing I broke down was an outline. Okay, so what does it look like if I broke it down with an outline? And these are things that you guys are already writing in about and asking questions about how to do this kind of stuff. Well, this is why I'm big on showing you this kind of stuff. So there's the actual outline of all the things that are going on. Now, obviously, unless you're going to stick to strict outline, there's going to be more to it than that. There's going to be, like we were talking about a minute ago, black spotting. How are you going to spot the blacks? So in the simplest form that I can show you, that's where the blacks are spotted. Again, very simply. When you actually go in there and add blacks, there's going to be a lot of little tiny things, like there's going to be armor textures and things like that, and different feathering, and a sense of a grayscale with this or that. But essentially, that's what you're looking at. Now, if we go back to the final piece, you can see what I mean by grayscales. This is either the coloring reduced to black and white, or things like that to help it read. These are things that I show you so you can experiment on your own. If you're a curious guy like the humble dude here, these are things that hopefully will make an impression in your head. And I'm just here to kind of point the finger to the light and say, go in that direction and experiment and obviously have fun. If it's not fun, we would never do this stuff. This Spider-Man panel, these are all things from my files that I've gathered here. You talk about incredible dynamic composition here. Now, I don't got to tell you what you're looking at here, do I? You guys are too smart for me to have to fool you like that, because I think you already know what I'm going to point out here. First of all, there's this. There's this. Remember I said you can break down everything into straight C and S curves. This is a C curve right here. It's just a C curve. And this one right here is another C curve. I see it going like this. So there's like this, and it's the same kind of thing, but the way the figure's positioned, it has a whole different dynamic to it. This one is going up, and this one is going down. And of course, you know what the great John Romita learned from Kirby is on display right here. The foreshortening of everything. I've always been a huge Romita fan. I came in just after the Ditko age, and the first thing I noticed when I compared Ditko to the guy that I came in with, Romita, is that Romita could draw. Ditko was a stylist, and after you see someone that can draw, it's kind of all over for the predecessor here. This is a example, a display of simplicity. Look at that face. For you guys that go through all this this rendering stuff, How much is really rendered there? When you look at that face, what you're looking at is very shamefully an example of someone that knows how to draw. Everything is there, and when you see a guy that knows how to draw, there's nothing that he's hiding behind. It's everything is right there with no gimmickry. There's no weird shadows in her face. There's nothing but a well constructed head, and it's so well constructed that that's how you know this guy really knows how to draw. Proportions are perfect. Everything is symmetrical from side to side. The hands are gestured very good. I think when he gets to actual inking, he's going to give it a couple more exacting strokes to put the fingers on exactly what they're going to be more correct looking. But this is exact, loose as it is. The gesture is perfect, but this face, especially in the hand gesture, it's classically perfect. I'm astounded by that, and it looks like a real person. Just amazing. I strive for this stuff all the time, by the way. Talk about simple. Okay, here's another Romita page right here. Basically, there's very few backgrounds in here. For one, Stan likes to crowd the page with all this dialogue. I'm surprised he could get it all in. But there's no backgrounds here. If there was, they were obliterated by dialogue. Here's one here and here's one here. But this kind of stuff right here, I mean, thank God there's some open space here because everything else is so crowded with dialogue here, which is probably all excellent because when I would read Stanley's dialogue, I would be laughing out loud because even though it was tight and there was a lot of it, he was so good at making this stuff up. I was talking to Romita one day, John Romita, and I had such a good time talking with him over the phone. One day, I actually made a trip out to see him in Queens, and it was such a good time. Such a humble man. But I talked to him on the phone many times, just for the reason to boast about how great he was to me and how much he affected me, and the brilliance of the things that he did in his Spider-Man books that just affected me in a way that's hard to overestimate. From the poses he thought up with to some of the acrobatics that he put Spider-Man through, to the handsomeness of his characters and his girls, but mostly the thing that he felt the proudest of, the reality of his storytelling, meaning that when he drew his characters and when Stan Lee filled in the dialogue, it felt like it was a real thing. And I think that's the bottom line for everything I've ever mentioned to certain comic book artists, is that I felt like when I was reading their stories, it felt like it was a real life. So when I would say that to everyone I've ever met that deserved that accolade, they were over the moon over that, because they actually created fiction that was so real it felt like exactly like it was coming out of a real life moment. So just wonderful stuff. I guess now we're going to come to the stage now where I grabbed a couple things from that French artist. I copied the drawings with pencil smears and all of this one and this one. We're going to bring the ink over that I hopefully won't spill. Fortunately, I did not. And then I basically drew it in as loose as the guy himself drew it. But I want to tell you, there's a lot more to this than what you may see at first. And I'm going to go into that before I actually start inking right here. Here's what I need to explain to you guys. First of all, I needed to get the gesture down, and this is a lot more trickier than it looks like at first. I actually had to do plumb lines to show where things ended up because they didn't come automatically. My head was like it went down to here, where my leg came down to there. This thing, my head was over here when it should have been over here. And I could only find that out through plumb lines that I would draw in. So I would change it and change it until I got the plumb lines right. And my eyes did not see those at first, so I would correct them until they're done. So what do we have here? We have a guy with a mustache. We have a certain kind of eyes, a certain kind of head shape. He doesn't have all this hair. He's got a Western tie kind of thing on because it's a Western. He's got a certain kind of coat. Well, how far does the coat go down on a body? He's got a vest on. Well, does the vest have pockets? Are they here? Are they up here? String tie, that's what I meant. And he's got a jacket on. And how far does the jacket come up? Especially, in the shoulders of jackets always come up to the very seam up here. That's to make guys look like they have bigger shoulders. What do the pants look like? What are they made of? Because that will determine the kind of folds that they have. They all wear cowboy boots. And why do they have heels in cowboy boots? Because when they're in the stirrups, they want to make sure that the stirrups stick up in here, so they need that heel space, so that they're not they don't slip out. They hang into with the stirrups, because otherwise they'll fall out. The shoes will fall out of the stirrups, and they'll go flying. So the material has a lot to do with it. The guns, how do they fit into their hands? All this kind of stuff. This is the same guy. What does he look like from a down view? What is his hair? How is he losing his hair? There's a male pattern baldness. Where does it start losing? What does his head look like for the same guy from a down shot? You got to make it look like he's the same guy. He's got hands that look like they're all starting in the rigor mortis stage for dynamics. I'm going to have his thumb cock back the trigger there, just for variety and to show that that's the way guns actually work. You hit the trigger and you're going to fire the gun. And the string tie is going to go flying this way. This is going to go flying this way. So there's all these considerations going on here. And these are things that 90% of you aren't going to think about before you draw these things. This is the kind of stuff that cranky old Alex Soth would go into with anyone who dared to ask him a question or get a critique from him, whether it was true or not. He would just launch into you and tell you that you should go back to milking cows for a living. So I'm going to start off by not looking at this stuff. I don't need it at this point. And I'm just going to grab this pen point with ink that I have filled up, and I'm going to see if I can make this work. Now, the first smart thing that I'm going to do, which is what I usually do, is grab one of these underhand sheets right here. I'm going to start with an outline, and I'm going to try to remember how fat this guy is, where the folds would go. I picked this pen nib out because I used it last time and I kind of liked it. Now, are there seams in these pants? How far do they go up? How far do they go down on the boot? And how do boots look like from this upward angle right here? Well, boots actually tip up a little bit if you've looked at them carefully. The heels go about to there, and they go up, and they also have a bit of a connection right here when they're glued onto the rest of the boot. The boot part is very thin here, and there's a very thin area right there. How far down do they come? Well, it's stuff that you guys got to figure out through research and knowledge. And does he have a belt on? Well, I'm going to assume he does. I think the vest is going to come down to there. Now, guys and girls have different vests that cross over. I think a girl comes this way and a guy goes that way. We're going to dip, 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 dip. And this is going to come up and do the shoulder thing. So the guy has broad shoulders. And these are actually things that you study for the rest of your life. You can never get too good at them because it's not the human way to get too good at anything. Now, obviously, there are masters at this kind of stuff. Does he have gloves on? Does he? If he does, we're going to have to put seam lines. And we're going to have to line up these this collar exactly where it is in the middle of where his shirt aligns. And this part stays intact also. It also has to be pretty much the same on the other side. We've got to shove this thing back in here. I get a little tired around this time of the day, but it's just too bad. I'm looking for an energy drink. If you guys have a recommendation on an energy drink, I insist you bring it up to me. Otherwise, there will be a penalty that you guys are not going to want to hear about. I know enough about folds to kind of give me a reasonable facsimile of what they would look like if we take on the challenge of thinking about what they would do. How did their folds go in the crotch area? What about the side pockets? Well, he's got the seam going up there. I'm going to put a seam there. We gotta always wait for the pen stuff to dry. This is a nice thin pen line here. Flowhard has it cold. Donate your blowhard cold medicine to the address seen on your screen, and I'm sure she'll be thanking you for that. And send your milk bones to the same address. He's very big on milk bones. Here's our little, and fat guys, you know how the fat guys are. They kind of bulge out, and the buttons would be like that, and they kind of, they radiate from there. I'm sure this guy would have a kind of a sense of that too, to show that he's kind of that kind of thing going on. Oh, there's that wide shoulder stuff going on again. So we're removing staph and having fun, and nobody cares if I'm tired or not. But yeah, energy drink, yeah, lay it on me, man. Okay, so we got to make this guy look exactly like the guy next to him there. This is where you might want to slow it down a little bit. I think you guys get the picture here. I don't really consider this to be a very good rendering here. This needs to go kind of in front of that. I think I'm just going to kind of blast it out here. Kind of in a Gibson flag kind of style here. Which I'm also very comfortable with. I've done this before, but we'll see if it works. You want to have these styles in your repertoire, because it's something. If you see things differently in your head, and you want to draw on a different style that might make things different, and you don't know how to do it, well, you're going to have to just put everything aside and try to find a way to do it in the middle of what you're trying to do. Well, that seems a little painful to me. So, there's always that possibility to do something like that. And the hands, and what are we going to do about over here? Well, I think with this kind of stuff right here, we can kind of just kind of half tone that area right there, and get as many parallel strokes as we can to indicate a dark, semi-dark colored cloth going on there. I've been working on this kind of stuff, this look, God, since back in Madison. That's a long time ago. It's been at least 35 years. And sometimes I would be proud that I kind of half figured out. You know how that goes. And other times I would go to bed with a frozen scream on my face. You know how that goes too. Sometimes you got to be very delicate about this stuff. Some guys go through the incredible bother of doing these very detailed prelims with pen and ink. Al Williamson used to do that. I was surprised to find out that he did that. My temperament would go insane if I had to do that. There's a lot of me that insists on going by the seat of my pants. And that all depends if I'm wearing the right kind of pants, obviously, but I think that there needs to be some kind of danger involved. That simply puts me in the way of the train, the oncoming train. I think that's also part of my temperament. So you can see, the nice blobs that are coming out that ruin everything. I mean, that's all part of the danger that you don't want. So definitely do not follow my lead on that. How did that happen? I don't know. I simply don't know. Now, there's that stupid stoppage right there that goes on with even the most expensive points. But there's a lot of things you can just keep doing with this. Let's just try making this kind of a lighter half tone here. This isn't really a substitute for color. It's something that goes along with color. I had a funny story where I challenged somebody when I moved to art center in LA, and I said, let's try this right here. It's kind of fun. Well, it didn't turn out too well for him. So he, rather than sign his real name, he goes, "I'm going to sign this Chad Riboflavin." I said, "That's a good idea. If you don't want anyone to know who did this, then Eric, no one will ever know who did this." Smart call. Okay, well, today we found out my big secret. I hope that was of value to you. I can't imagine that it wasn't. That is the story of where I got my single greatest idea about people that design. It is design first and everything else second. So again, I will hope to hear your comments about things, because we've been getting a lot of comments in, guys, and a lot of them are of great interest. given the forward momentum of all these comments, I would just keep them coming, because you obviously want to write in and want to be heard. So that is the name of this game. I'll just say for right now, instead of giving you every goodbye in every known language on the planet here, I'll just say simply, I'll see you next time. And flow hard here degrees. The bunnies are getting faster, she's getting slower. So thanks a lot. Take care. We'll see you soon.